Welcome to week 12 of Bible Studies for Life, continuing in the Gospel of Luke. Today we're in Luke chapter 12, and we're going to be looking at a passage that, like last week's, will seem familiar to you in many ways because it parallels much of what we find in the Gospel of Matthew. Again, stuff that's in the Sermon on the Mount, which we saw last week in Luke 11, some parallels to some the Lord's Prayer, the model prayer that we see in the Sermon on the Mount. Here we get some other parallels to that. Before we dive into that, be sure and subscribe, like, comment, share it with other people. If you got questions, put those down there in the comments as well. And if you want to help support the ministry we have, you can go to give.exposedtochrist.com and support that. All right, let's look in here at Luke chapter 12. Then he said to his disciples, "Therefore I tell you, don't worry about your life, what you will eat, or about the body, what you will wear. For life is more than food, and the body more than clothing." A great opening statement from Jesus, and one that communicates kind of an overall theme for what this section is about. Don't worry. Don't worry about your life, what you're going to eat, what you're going to wear. Don't worry about these things. Don't worry about these needs of your life. Don't worry about them, right? Because he says, here's reason number one. Life is more than food and the body more than clothing. There are things more important than what you eat and more important than what you wear. So don't worry about these things. There are things that are more important that we need to consider. This is the first thing. And boy, this whole don't worry, okay, that's tough, right? Easier said than done for some. Some people have no care in the world, right? They don't worry about anything that happens, but most people have worries. We worry about things, and we think that worry is outside of our control. We cannot help but worry. But look, Jesus says, don't worry. He makes a command. He gives you a command, do not worry. Now, if he gives you a command, do not worry, he would never give you that command if you were not able to follow that command. Okay, for instance, would he say, don't let your hair grow at all? Well, no, you can't keep your hair from growing, right? He wouldn't say that. But he wouldn't say, don't breathe air. You have to. We do. We just do it. We don't think about it. We just do it. But worry, he says, don't worry. Now, we may think, well, I can't help it. Well, I just do it. I don't think about worry. I just do it. But he says, don't worry. Therefore, the Lord knows that worry is something within our control. So it is something that we can stop doing. We can stop worrying. Okay, now let's go on. Consider the ravens. They don't sow or reap. They don't have a storeroom or a barn, yet God feeds them. Aren't you worth much more than the birds? Can any of you add one moment to his lifespan by worrying? If then you're not able to do even a little thing, why worry about the rest? Point number two, right? Point number one is there are things more important. Point number two, you're not able to do anything about other stuff, right? You can't do anything about it, so why worry? It's not going to help you. He says, look at the birds, the ravens. They don't sow, they don't reap. They don't have a storeroom, they don't have a barn, and God feeds them. Aren't you worth more than the birds? Answer, yes. Can you make your life longer by worrying? Does it make your life better by worrying? Is it an enhancement to your life to worry? No. Well, then stop, right? The Lord's going to take care of these things, right? And you can't help it. You can't make it one way or the other. So don't worry about it. Don't worry about we can't grow ourselves. We can't add time to our lives. We can't do that. So don't worry. God has this. God has this taken care of. God feeds them. He's going to feed us. Aren't we more important than the birds? Are we worth more to him than the birds? Yes. So trust the Lord in this. The next thing, consider how the wildflowers grow. They don't labor or spin thread, yet I tell you, not even Solomon in all his splendor was adorned like one of these. If that's how God clothes the grass, which is in the field today and is thrown into the furnace tomorrow, how much more will he do for you, you of little faith? Number three, right? The wildflowers. The wildflowers just grow, right? And he says, Solomon in his splendor. Now, Look, Solomon and his wealth, you can go back and read about Solomon and King Solomon and the wealth that he had, the money that was given to him by other nations that his father David had conquered, and now they're paying taxes to Israel. And these nations are giving so much that it says that for Solomon, the silver was like rocks on the ground. I mean, it didn't mean a whole lot. Silver was just, oh, no big deal. It's just like rocks. He had so much gold, he had so much wealth. And he says Solomon was nowhere near as beautiful as these wildflowers out in the field. God took care of them. If that's how God clothes the grass, which is in the field today and gone tomorrow, right? It doesn't last. How much more will he do for you? The Lord will take care of you. So what is this? He says, you have little faith. You know what that means? Worry is the opposite of faith, the antithesis of faith. The reason we worry, he says, is because we don't exercise our faith. It's not that we don't have any faith. We're not exercising our faith. We're not putting our trust in God to take care of these things. What we eat, what we wear, right? These are two things that he's talked about. So then he goes on. Don't strive for what you should eat and what you should drink, and don't be anxious. This other word that goes with worry, right? For the Gentile world eagerly seeks all these things, and your Father knows that you need them. Okay, verse 30 is interesting, because verse 30 he says, you know, this is what the world spends all their time on, and that's true, isn't it? And it's hard when you live in that world and you're a part of that world to recognize that is not the godly way, because it is kind of the way we think about things. But what he's saying is, this is the way the world outside of the reign of God in their lives, this is how they live. They spend all their time searching and trying to get the best and the highest and making money to secure all of these things, and they worry about it constantly. They're anxious about it all the time. And he says, that is not you, right? Your Father knows what you need. Your Father knows that you need them. He knows that you have to have food and drink and clothes. He knows that, doesn't he? So to worry about that or to be anxious about it is to not trust the Father to take care of these things, which doesn't mean we don't work, and it doesn't mean you don't have a job, because those are things that the Lord provides, and the things that the Lord has created us for, to work. He's provided a job to work and to provide for our family. But he is saying you don't worry about them and you're not anxious about them. God will take care of these things. This is an issue of faith and of trust. And then we get to this last section, which will sound familiar to those of you who like the book of Matthew. But seek his kingdom, and these things will be provided for you. Don't be afraid, little flock, because your Father delights to give you the kingdom. Sell your possessions, give to the poor. Make money bags for yourselves that won't grow old, an inexhaustible treasure in heaven where no thief comes near and no moth destroys. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. We kind of got bookend verses on this section that are really key verses for us. This reminds us of Matthew 6:33, right? Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. All these things will be added unto you. Seek his kingdom. You seek to please him. Seek to live in his kingdom, to live surrounded by the things, seeking after the things, valuing the things that matter to God, not the things that matter to the world. Seek his kingdom, and God will take care of these needs. You know, he says, don't be afraid. Look at this. Don't be afraid. The reason that we are afraid, the reason that we don't trust the Lord is because we're afraid. The reason we're afraid is because we don't trust. These two things kind of work with one another, don't they? Our fear keeps us from trusting, and our lack of trust grows our fear. He says, look, the Father delights to give you the kingdom. He delights. He loves to give you the kingdom. He loves this. So sell your possessions, give them to the poor. Make money bags for yourselves that won't grow old. Don't worry about these things, right? Because where your treasure is, there your heart will be. Seek the things that matter to God, that are valued by God, the things that are a part of his kingdom. God will take care of all these other things. The reality is that what you treasure, that's where your heart is. What you value, that's what you really want. That's what is really important to you. It shows, doesn't it? reveals itself in our own lives. So look and ask, well, what does my heart look like? And you realize that when I treasure the things, and when I'm spending all my time seeking after the things here in the world, that's what my heart looks like. And maybe that's why our hearts aren't the way they need to be, so that we can really follow Christ, because of what it is that's really important to us. I don't know. Thanks. Hey, I appreciate you watching. God bless you for that. Be sure and subscribe if you haven't already. Like, comment, share, ask your questions always. We've got just 1 week left in this quarter. So looking forward to next week. We'll see you then.